Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everybody, and welcome to Pangolin, the conservation podcast, the show dedicated to exploring and amplifying the world's underappreciated conservation stories. The stories that inspire me, and I hope will inspire you too. I'm your host, Jack Baker, and today I am joined by Martha Hunt Handler, author, activist, and board president of the Wolf Conservation Centre. She's here to chat all about the wonderful world of the wolf. So we cover everything from how she began her conservation journey, to the story of the Mexican grey wolf, to the tale of Yellowstone National Park, and yeah, it's just fantastic, and I am so inspired by some of the things that she says. I particularly love, I think the Mexican grey wolf is just fantastic, and I'm so, I loved learning more about it, having visited Arizona and everything, just brilliant. Loved it, loved it, loved it. We also discussed the work of the Wolf Conservation Centre and how they use education to inspire budding conservationists and break down the stereotype of this big, bad, scary wolf. And it's great to kind of chat about it. And this is the second time the wolf has come up this series. So if you love this chat, make sure and go back and listen to our episode with Craig. Just to plug that as well. But that's enough for me now. I'll let the episode play. I hope you enjoy. And without further ado, let's get started. And welcome back to the show. Today I am joined by Martha Hunt Handler, the board president of the Wolf Conservation Centre, author of Winter of the Wolf, and the founder of the Women's Wolf Pack. And I feel like you could probably already guess what we're going to be talking about today, which animal might be coming up given the titles. But I am so excited to welcome you, Martha, to talk all about the incredible world of the wolf. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Jack. I am excited to tell your listeners about wolves because they are one of the more misunderstood animals that we have on the planet.
Mm-hmm. Yes. There's someone in my office at my PhD at the moment. I'm doing a PhD at the moment in Edinburgh, and there's someone in my office kind of studying perceptions of wolves in Scotland. And so, yes, I am very excited to talk to kind of in the American context what's going on, because I talk about the Scottish context, I feel like, every day about kind of the perceptions and farmer dynamics and all these sorts of things. So it'll be really interesting to hear about kind of your work and experience with them. I'm really excited. But to get us started, before we talk about the stars of the show, the wolves, I always like to open up with a question, because I do the research. I know a little bit about what's on like CVs and websites and all these sorts of things. But I always think it's better if you guys, if the guests, introduce yourselves, because you know far more about yourself than I do. And so, would you like to tell the listeners a little bit about who you are, what you do? Just a little bit about you.
Sure. So I grew up on the Illinois-Wisconsin border, and I had the ability to hear animals speaking before people started telling me that was impossible, and it kind of shut down. But one of my favorite animals as a child was a black wolf who showed up in my dreams all the time. And we communicated more by him. I know it was a male, and he showed me maybe like different friends that I should hang out with or a different career path. I mean, it was just like he would always just pop up and be like looking at something in the distance. And when I looked at it, it sort of made sense of what I should be doing. So if anyone had said, "What is your totem animal?" I would always say a wolf. Not that I'd ever seen one, or, even in zoos, I'd never seen a wolf, but just felt strangely connected to them. And I got married, moved from California to New York. We were renting a house, and I started hearing a wolf howling. And I knew that wolves had not been in the state of New York since the 1890s. So pretty strange that I'd be hearing wolf howling. I kept asking everybody, and no one knew. They're like, "I don't think you're hearing wolves. I think you're hearing coyotes or maybe foxes," but this was definitely wolves. And we also had a tennis court in the backyard that kept being littered with huge bones on it. and I would clean them up, and the bones would be back again, which was
Mhm.
just the oddest thing I'd ever seen. So one day I just walked into the woods, and there was a trailer next to an enclosure that had 3 wolves in it. And I knocked on the door, and this beautiful French woman, very young, she was like 26, I think, at the time. She answered the door and told me that she wanted to start this wolf center to help bring back wolves. Um, she's a really interesting woman in herself. She's a classical pianist from Aix-en-Provence in France. She was the
Mhm.
youngest to ever graduate from the Paris Conservatory. She has synesthesia, so she sees musical notes as colors. So when you watch her play, she kind of goes into a trance because she's watching these colors that aren't on the earth spectrum
Uh-huh.
show up before her eyes, and that's what she plays from. She also knew, given her schedule of 200 plus concerts a year, she'd never be able to have children or a family, but she became somehow psychically connected to this wolf dog hybrid that she met while getting photos taken for one of her album covers. And it told her that wolves were in big trouble. And that's when she decided, okay, then wolves are going to be my thing.
Mhm.
So she opened up with this center, and she kind of drew a big circle around JFK because she knew that she'd be on a plane a lot. And that's how she found the property that we at. And we're about just about an hour north of New York City.
Uh-huh.
So easy to get to if you're ever, anyone's out there listening and is in the New York area. Um, so it's grown over the last 23 years or so, but we are very committed to advancing the survival of wolves by inspiring a global community
Mhm.
through education, advocacy, research, and recovery. So we see about 30 to 40,000 people on our campus a year for education programs, a
Mhm.
lot of school children, but a lot of others too. We have weekend programs, so it brings in a lot of families. We have programs like Sleeping with Wolves, where you're in a tent, and they're corpuscular, so they make the most noise
Mhm.
from dusk until dawn. So it's really special to hear. And we have anywhere from 20 to 50 wolves at any one time. So it's a lot of different voices that you get to hear.
Mhm.
We're big advocates on whatever bills are going through Congress, state level,
Mhm.
uh, national level. We're very fortunate because we've built up our social media presence because we have cameras in all of our enclosures. So it's a rare
Mhm.
opportunity to see wolves in live streaming. So
Mhm.
we have close to 7 million followers at this point. So it allows us to get
Mhm.
bills, a lot of people signing up to
Mhm.
talk to, to write letters to their statesmen and stuff. So that's hugely helpful. We are doing lots of research now. We just hired our first 2 scientists about 2 years ago. So
Mhm.
they're looking at other areas that maybe wolves could be put that haven't been there for a while that might be good habitat for them. And then we are part of the SAFE program, which is Saving Animals from Extinction,
Mhm.
which is as dire as it sounds. So we have the 2 most critically endangered species of wolves in North America are the red wolves, which are
Mhm.
being which live in North Carolina. They did at one point live all over the entire East Coast, um, all the way to Texas.
Mhm.
And in the 1970s, they found the last remaining, um, I think there was 13 wolves in the world of red wolves.
Mhm.
They brought them into captivity, and that's what started this breeding program.
Mhm.
So the genetics are horrible, as you can imagine, because those were all related. So all these years later, we're not that much far removed from those original members.
Mhm.
And sadly, North Carolina has been fighting the reintroduction from the get go.
Mhm.
And today there's only 12 left in the wild.
Mhm.
So, not making a lot of progress in a lot of years. Um, the Mexican gray wolves are a little better story. There
Mhm.
was only 7 of them left in
Mhm.
the world. Those 7 started, we started the bringing them into captivity to start the breeding program in the middle 80s, and they're at about 230 right now,
Mhm.
and they go to New Mexico, Mexico, and Arizona.
Mhm.
So it's it's a real uphill battle.
Uh-huh.
But a lot of people tell me, why wolves? Like, but I think they're one of the most important creatures on the planet because
Mhm.
of where they sit on the food chain.
Yeah.
And for those that are interested, I highly recommend you watch the YouTube video, How Wolves Change Rivers.
Hmm.
It's kind of a fascinating look at one reintroduction that took place in Yellowstone. So wolves haven't
Hmm.
been there again in close to 100 years. And in that time, Yellowstone was just becoming a wasteland because it was so full
Hmm.
of all those prey species, which is anything with a hoof. So wolves go after deer, elk,
Hmm.
bison, buffalo. And those animals didn't have anything that they need to worry about. So they weren't, you know,
Hmm.
grazing and moving and grazing and moving. They were just grazing until there was nothing left
Hmm.
and then moving on, which meant that none of the trees could grow because all the saplings were being eaten before they could be turned into
Hmm.
trees, which meant the birds were all disappeared because there was nothing for them to be in. The beavers
Hmm.
disappeared. All the other scavenger animals like fox and rabbits and shrews. It was just really a wasteland of big hoofed animals, not a whole lot else. So in 1994 and 95, they brought in 41 wolves from Canada,
Hmm.
and no one could believe how quickly the ecosystem went back to the way it should have been,
Yeah.
and that rivers, returned to flowing in a river, because before, when there was no trees to keep the rivers in the banks, it just was a big flooded landscape.
Hmm.
So it just quickly, and now with all these sped up cameras, you can really see the whole land starting to come back together just
Hmm.
from 41, you know, animals. It's a pretty amazing and astounding accomplishment, because they don't weigh a whole lot, but they
Uh-huh.
make a huge difference in the landscape.
Hmm. Hmm. That is fantastic, and I think it's touched on so many points that I want to ask you more about, because there's so much to these creatures that I think sometimes people, yeah, they see a wolf and they think, oh, what is there? So, like, they have a very set perception in their head of the big bad wolf, or these things that, like, all around them, this is what culture and everybody tells them. It's like, this is the one thing that wolves can be. But
Yeah,
actually, there's so much more there to them, and they're so important. It's really, really interesting. And I can see why, like, you were drawn instantly in to their kind of story. And was there ever any doubt in your mind, or were you ever like, oh, I might want to work with this or something? Was it always the wolf for you?
not really. And it's there's so many other causes out there,
Hmm.
especially, yeah, with what's going on with our planet and
Hmm.
global warming. And it was interesting. I was in Austria because I was having really bad stomach problems a couple of years ago, and I'd gone to all these doctors here, and no one could really figure out what was going on with me. And I went to this clinic in Austria where they make you see everyone from a shaman to traditional doctors too.
Hmm.
But the shaman like put me into a trance, and then he woke me up a few minutes later and said, "Do you do something with wolves?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Okay, because I have like 50 of them in my office right now. I've never seen anything like this." He said, "Okay, I'm going to put you back under." And then when he brought me out, he said, "So it's pretty simple. You need to stay in your wolf lane. You're here for the wolves in this lifetime,
Yep.
and you keep like learning about other problems and going off, and then you're not as effective for the wolves. And if you could just focus on the wolves, all your stomach issues will go away." And it's been like this remarkable, like I can feel myself going there, and I'm like, no, 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 get back, get back. Like,
I mean, I feel like that is, yeah. If you're getting told that, and there's however many wolves in this person is got in there, yeah, I'll be like, yep, okay, and yeah, that's incredible. That's, yeah. I feel like, yeah, because the draw would be like, oh, maybe it's just take some antibiotics and you'll be
yes.
okay. No, no, that's like, that's really, really interesting. Really, really interesting.
So I do
Um.
say, like, I think wolves have one of the worst PR agents in the world, right? I mean, yeah, I
Mhm.
used to have a bumper sticker that said "Little Red Riding Hood lied," and it would,
Yeah.
always make little kids be like, "Mom, why does that say that?" And like, it was great to have that chance to explain it to them that, that was a fable about not talking to strangers, and then they
Yeah.
unfortunately used a wolf. But yeah,
Yeah.
back to the depths of history,
Hmm.
wolves were associated with the devil, and it's just always been this thing to come back from. And yeah, a lot of my friends are like, "Ooh, if you see a wolf in the wild, what are you supposed to do?" And I was like, "You will never see a wolf in the wild. They will know you're
Yeah.
coming for miles ahead, and they will not be in your way.
Yeah.
And they don't kill people. that's just not what they do. You're not an ungulate. You're not something that they're interested in. They're very fearful of people.
Yep.
So which brings me to an interesting, the Mexican gray wolves, they are only allowing pup cross fostering at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So what that entails, which is a lot on our part, is our wolves are owned by the Fish and Wildlife Department,
Uh-huh.
and we have two ambassador wolves that are gray wolves. They're not endangered necessarily. They're born in captivity, so they have to stay in captivity. But there are teaching wolves, because probably no one would come to our center to learn about how important wolves are if we didn't have something to show them. The rest of the wolves have to be kept off exhibit because we want them to do
Mm-hmm.
well when they're released. And if they get used to people, that will probably be the death of them.
Mm-hmm.
So when we have a litter, we call the Fish and Wildlife Department and tell them, this male and this female just had a pup, 6 in their litter. They've got 2 males, 4 females, and they say, okay, hold on, we're going to go see what's happening in the wild. So they look for a wild den where they have also had pups. They know this
Mm-hmm.
because the females are collared, and they know that if that wolf spent more than 12 hours in one location, that it must have given
Mm-hmm.
birth, because they don't usually they don't go into a den unless they're giving birth.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll say, okay, at about 8, 9 days before their eyes are open, get
Mm-hmm.
the wolf to this site. So we have to find private airplanes, because they would never survive going through the rigmaroles of commercial
Uh-huh.
travel. Luckily, we've been very fortunate to have a group called Lighthawk, who are a bunch of pilots who want to give back to
Mm-hmm.
environmental causes like us, and will help get animals shipped around. So hopefully a pilot will line up with a plane, and we can bring the pup, and they're literally like not even 2 pounds. They're born very small.
Mm-hmm.
And it's touch and go, just getting them there, getting them fed enough in the time it
Mm-hmm.
takes. We're very far from New Mexico and Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then hiking up to the site, we now have armed guards, because there's people that want to take us out and don't want these wolves brought back. Just
Mm-hmm.
shocking. Um, and when the wild wolf mother starts smelling humans, she leaves her den, unlike almost every other animal on the planet, which will
Mm-hmm.
protect. I like to think they're so smart that they realize, well, I can have pups next year, but if you take us all out,
Yeah.
that won't happen. So she leaves, and then we insert the pups into the den, and we can observe as much as we possibly can from afar. And as far as we know, it's been 100% that they have adopted them and carried on. I don't know what the mother thinks, that there's all of a sudden extra wolves. But it's quite extraordinary what we're doing to
Mm-hmm.
have to save these species. We now have a frozen zoo with eggs and sperm. We're doing artificial insemination.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the genetics, these wolves get flown all over to mate with one another,
Yeah.
and they don't always like each other when we get there. And so then,
Yeah.
it's a whole nother rigmarole moving them around to someplace else. But yeah. And like what we would love to do would be to take a whole pack, which is just family members,
Yeah.
and, release them all together. They've already gotten
Mm-hmm.
used to each other, because for all wolf pups, there's only a 50% survival at 1 year, even in captivity. That's
Yeah.
about it. They're just born so small and have to grow so fast, and a lot can go wrong in that first year.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. That's yeah. It's I can't imagine the kind of like it's stressful enough, I suppose, when people are working in a place where the wildlife, like, it's where there's things, everything is right there around them, but that
Yes.
transfer process, that everything, I feel like I want to ask so much. There's so many questions come up, but I think the main one that I kind of am thinking about now is I'm really intrigued in the Mexican gray wolf's kind of story, because I think I've talked to people before about some different kind of species. I was in Arizona last year, and it's something that like I kind of learned a little bit about while I was there, but not a lot. And so I'd be intrigued to know, like, what is the story of that particular species? Is it something that like they've just seen declines over time, and or is there a human wildlife conflict? What makes even just knowing what makes them special and kind of unique? All these things are questions I have. So yeah, could you tell me more about them?
Pretty much when the white man came to America, they wiped
Hmm.
out anything that they believed would get in the way of the species
Hmm.
that they wanted to eat.
Yeah.
Um, the science has proven over and over again, wolves actually make all those ungulates, all those elk and cow
Mhm.
herds much stronger because they're taking out the weak one and the ones that have diseases so that those things
Mhm.
don't spread.
Mhm.
But it's a long ingrained hatred of wolves, that is
Mhm.
go back forever. So a lot of ranchers,
Mhm.
um, wolves take out 0.006% of livestock.
Mhm.
And if they can prove that it was taken out by a wolf, they'll get paid what it would
Mhm.
what they would get if they sold the animal.
Mhm.
Um, and that's been an unfortunate situation. It was put into these bills as a way to calm down the ranching community.
Yeah.
But what it does is leads to a lot of illegal activity. Like if they have a diseased or an elderly or, yeah, something wrong with one of them, they just drag it out to the woods, wait for a wolf to come get it, drag it back in, and then call the Fish and Wildlife Department. So it's not the
Mhm.
best situation,
Mhm.
but it's kind of what we had to do to get these bills passed.
Mhm.
But really, it boiled down to just a lot of they just aren't listening. People aren't listening to the science. They're not,
Mhm.
you know, educating themselves. They're just like my great grandfather hated wolves.
Mhm.
We just aren't wolf lovers. And, there's groups that are trying to like go into these people's ranches with an open mind, trying to talk to them and understand what their issues are and can we work together.
Mhm.
So there's so much that they can be doing because cows and sheep at one point were wild animals and they knew to always stay in a bunch and put the young, the old, infirm in
Mhm.
the middle and all the strongest ones on the outside. Then a wolf sees that and is like, oh, no, I'm not going there. That's way too formidable for me.
Yeah.
But in America, they're allowed to go all over the our public lands, pretty much
Mhm.
grazing anywhere they want. So there's no one really keeping an
Mhm.
eye on them. So we've been working with the 4-H, which is kind of our young group that gets involved with animal husbandry, and showing them that if they just hired range riders, which used to be a common job that you would have on a ranch, and they would
Mhm.
just ride around the herd, keeping them together and
Mhm.
protecting them. There's also, you can just put flags up. It's enough to scare a wolf. They don't like when things are moving and they don't understand the movement of them.
Uh-huh.
Because, what we've come to understand is, yes, they're going to at some point slaughter those animals for food, but
Mhm.
until then, they really love them and
Yeah.
feel that they're there to protect them. And so when
Yeah.
they see, that a wolf has gotten at an animal, it looks bad. It's not
Yeah.
something that they want to see. But I think when we can just be on talking terms with enough to get them to understand there are a lot of different things they can do. They can
Mhm.
even blast music is enough to keep a wolf away.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of things, and we're working with them as much as they'll allow us to work with
Mhm.
them. I think hunters too, it's been a big problem because they're not looking at all at the science. So when there wasn't any prey species, these wolves weren't around. If you went to Wyoming and they would charge you like $2,000 and they would guarantee you that you're going to get an elk before you return in 5 days
Mhm.
because they knew that herd every year from October 15th to October 30th would be sitting, would be in their pastures and it'd be really easy to hunt them. Now they're acting, there's a prey around. So they're like moving, moving, moving. You don't know where they're going to be. You
Yeah.
can't guarantee. So yeah, their livelihoods were not as predictable as they used to be. So we're just, trying to learn as much as we can about what we can do to help ranchers and hunters feel that this is the best situation for
Mhm.
all of them to have a healthy population of wolves that
Mhm.
there once were. So yeah, the Mexican gray wolves were all over the whole, probably the maybe, I mean, I don't know if you know that, like middle of California was probably the line of
Mhm.
where Mexican gray wolves were south, and
Yeah.
then they were just gray wolves north of
Mhm.
that. But they're, as compared to a red wolf, they're probably 20 to 25 pounds heavier. Red wolves are smaller. They live in warm
Mhm.
climates, so they have much bigger ears. They are called red wolves because they have a very reddish tint to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mexican gray wolves are much grayer,
Mhm.
not as large as some of the gray wolves you might find in Canada or Alaska in colder climates.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it's it's a really fascinating kind of story, and I think it's something that like when these things become so ingrained in people's minds, and like you can see why there is the kind of concern, because if it has been this kind of thing where they've grown up with this perception, it's really hard to break that kind of like cycle of, oh well, this person told me and I told my son and I told my daughter and I told this person, and that like once it's gone down through the generations of we don't like these things, it doesn't really, it's hard to break that cycle. I wonder like what is the type of things that to kind of break through that kind of, oh, this is the villain in this story. What are the sorts of things that you kind of try and do to explain either to kind of the ranchers or to like the general public? Like how do you begin to try and break down these like long held kind of biases that people have?
Trying to set up more and more field offices so that there's
Yeah.
places that these people can go and that information
Hmm.
is being distributed there. But like just recently in Arizona, some wealthy person built all these like bus stop um, enclosures for school bus kids and said that they were to keep you safe from the wolves. So it actually says on there wolf proof, and it's like now you've scared this whole generation of little kids feeling like, oh my gosh, I can't even stand
Yeah.
at the bus stop, I might be ripped apart from a wolf. And it's maddening when these things
Yeah.
happen. And interesting, I guess wolves are making a big comeback all over Europe because we're getting lots of phone
Hmm.
calls from different environmental education groups all over Europe asking us, what can we do? They're coming in, they're breeding, the numbers are growing. We want to try to
Hmm.
get a hold of this situation before it's too late because people are already complaining about it.
Hmm.
And yeah, I just like we're happy to send information out because it is really just going ranch to ranch or farm to farm to try to talk to these people about the small little things they could do that would make a big
Hmm.
difference to save their herds.
Hmm. Hmm. That's yeah. That's I think that's yeah. It is. It's good to the yeah. It's kind of not confrontational. It's not like, oh, you have to. It's nice that like, even though some of the things that have been done to the wolf are like this schooling bus enclosures are quite like confrontational. I always think that in when you meet fire with fire, you're never going to see eye to eye. But if you meet people with reasonable conversation and say, listen, that wasn't maybe the best perception. Do you know this? Did you know that you could do this? That's far more likely to. I think it's. I always go into things, whatever situation in life, with like you catch more flies with honey than you do with anything else. Being sweet and being nice and being kind of like, yep, this is the things we're going to do. These are the suggestions. But being firm when you have to be, not letting
Yes.
yourself be pushed over, but being firm with certain things, but still going in with that kind of open mind to discussion, I think is really, really important. Really, really
Yeah.
important.
We just had like
Mhm,
a board and staff a virtual cocktail hour where we had a specialist come to talk about like what are the best ways to when you find yourself in a bar in Wyoming and
mhm.
somebody has said something that's so wrong about wolves.
Yeah.
And how do when you don't feel like shutting up is the best way, that you feel like I don't want to just let this go, that was really
Mhm.
not true what he just said, and he just told it to 10 people sitting at the bar, like what can you do? um
Yeah.
and I think, yeah, it helps us all be more human. Like we have big brains, we're supposed to be able to communicate and talk to one another and kind of work things through. And I think Europe has got equal problems of so much of the land has been driven by animals for pastures, and so there isn't a lot of the prey
Mhm.
species that are left, like the elk and the deer and the stags. And like, yeah, it's a bigger problem because they don't have any choice of what they're eating.
Yeah, it's interesting because here in Scotland, a lot of the discussion is around the fact that we actually have to cull huge amounts of deer in the Highlands every year of Scotland. But then you have still that same issue of, and I think a lot of the there's pushback from like, so I know personally, like I used to do like a lot of, I was in the scouts and I did all these things going up into the mountains. And I know my mum, whenever I talk to her about wolf introductions, is like, I wouldn't I wouldn't have wanted you to do that if I'd thought those things. And because these perceptions are so ingrained in us, And then equally, like, yeah, there's the discussion with farmers and things, with all the kind of just like, oh, well, we have sheep or we have cows or we have these things that like we're now concerned about. And it's all very kind of, yeah, it's really interesting to see the kind of similar, very different scenarios, but similar kind of things. And it's, I guess, yeah, it's, I don't know a lot about mainland Europe and their wolf situation, but I think I imagine, as you were saying, like it's kind of, it's different, but there's these similar issues kind of arising, maybe more intensely in different areas than others. But it's
Yeah.
interesting, especially when it's interesting, I think, from a conservation kind of perspective, especially somewhere that doesn't have large carnivores. Like we in the UK don't have large carnivore kind of predator species. It's interesting to see how the reaction sometimes is, we don't want wolves, we don't want lynx, we don't want these things, but we're happy sometimes to say, but you have to protect the tigers and you have to protect the lions and you have to protect the wolves where you have wolves. We just don't want them here. It's this interesting kind of
Yeah.
conversation about conservation that goes much deeper than the wolf and the large predator, I think. But
Yes.
it's something
Not
that,
in my
yeah, it's,
backyard, but I want them.
yeah, yeah. So it's really really interesting, and it's something that like, yeah, it's yeah, it's, I don't know how to solve it because there are so many everyone has an opinion, but it's amazing to hear that there are organizations like yours out there trying to do the correct kind of like, oh well, if we talk to these people and we make them understand, like actually these, that you shouldn't fear them as much as you necessarily do,
Right.
then we can begin to make these changes. It's really really interesting.
In our
It,
area, deer are a huge problem. Like they,
mhm,
probably the number one cause of car accidents up here, and they're serious car accidents.
mhm.
And it's
Yeah.
what feeds all of our wolves is the roadkill deer that the highway
Uh-huh.
department brings to us. Or the other day I drove up and there was an, like, this woman had to be in her 80s, and she said, "Now where is it that I dropped the deer off?" And we have like a big deer drop area. And I was like, "You can just
Uh-huh.
tell me where it is, and we can send somebody out there to get it." She goes, "Oh, it's in my trunk." I'm like, oh my God. We open her trunk and there is this big mangled bloody deer. I'm like, "How did you get it in your trunk?" She's, "Well, some nice men stopped on the side of the road and helped me get it in." Oh my God. But during
Oh.
COVID, no one was driving cars. I feel like I have contingencies for
Mhm.
everything, but I didn't ever anticipate that there would be no cars on the road and no deer were being hit. And we had like 40 wolves to feed with no food
Mhm.
coming in. It's a
Oh.
tough time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That actually, I guess, draws us back quite nicely to, because we've talked about field work that you guys all do, like, but I guess more close to home with your kind of work on site, or like with the, and what sort of things do you do actually at the center itself? Like, is it kind of a lot of education? Like, what is, yeah, what is it? Education focused? Is it kind of a very zoo kind of vibe? Like, what's the kind of atmosphere? I'd love to know more about what you do.
Yeah, so it's very education oriented. So besides
Yeah.
programs for school children, which take place pretty much all the time, then there's weekend programs. There's camping with wolves, which is um, basically sleeping in a tent. And because they're
Mm-hmm.
corpuscular, they make the most noise between dusk and dawn. And it's really cool to hear like 40 wolves of three different species all
Yeah.
howling at the same time. It's magical. We have
Yeah.
photography groups, so we have holes in our enclosures that we can open up. So you get really great shots of wolves from those. We have cameras in each one of our enclosures, which we put in just for
Mhm.
ourselves because the wolves that will hopefully someday be reintroduced, we keep them off exhibit, and we don't want people to see them, and we have very little
Mhm.
interaction with them ourselves. We drop the deer in a couple times a week,
Mhm.
a full deer, and we do once a year health checks, but other than that, we don't interfere with them. And we have to
Mhm.
ask Fish and Wildlife Department if we're allowed to interfere. Like we had a birthing situation, and because we have so many Facebook followers, somebody contacted and said, "I see this wolf in labor." And it was like, for us, it was like 3 a.m, but the person was up in Europe saying, "This doesn't look good.
Mhm.
She doesn't look like she's going to make it." We called Fish and Wildlife Department. They were like, "Go ahead, give her a shot of calcium." And it probably saved that mother wolf and those
Yeah.
6 pups. So hugely important, and has, yeah, greatly allowed us to reach more people, which is great.
Mhm.
Um, we have summer camps for kids. which is another way to spread the word. Um, and what we would like to do is have a bunch of field offices. So, it's one thing to teach people in New York about wolves when there isn't any wolves here to contend with. But
Yeah.
it's a lot different if you live in a state where the situation is going on and you're hearing both sides and you're not sure who to
Hmm.
believe. So, yeah, that would be huge. And we do
Hmm.
lots of webinars and virtual teaching. So, a lot of schools that either don't live in our area or they can't afford the transportation cost to get to us can take a virtual class, which has been
Hmm.
great. We do a lot of those now, and that kind of also started from COVID, realizing people weren't coming to us, so we would somehow have to get to them.
Hmm.
So that was one great thing that came out of COVID for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. The podcast came out of COVID. It's one of those things that I think, yeah, to make all of the bad things disappear, we have to focus on those good things. And I think, yeah, there's sometimes like seeing, like, yeah, the new ways we can reach people and new things that we can do and we're forced to do are actually some of the most exciting things that we now do. It's really interesting to see.
Oh,
Um,
and I started out with that story that there was bones on my tennis court.
yes,
So
yes. Where
that's
did they come
because
from?
after they've eaten what they're going to off the deer carcass,
Uh huh.
vultures and ravens and things come in to pick off the rest of the stuff of the bones, and they were taking the bones and dropping them on the tennis court to get the the bone marrow out of the bones.
I did
So,
wonder. That's a good link. People will have been sat waiting for that
yeah.
end to that story because yeah. And now I did one. I was one of those things at the time. I was like, how did they get? Were the wolves getting out and coming and dropping things? No, they were. It was everybody else. And I guess that's a perfect example of how important wolves are
Yes.
because you have these other animals that rely on them. There's the important message like behind all of that.
I was up there the other day and there was a bunch of golf balls inside the enclosures. Now, there is a golf club, but it's too far away for anyone to hit a golf
Hmm.
ball that far and make it into the enclosures. And we were all wondering how this was happening. So, in the wild, ravens and wolves have a very deep connection because the ravens will show the wolves where, like, a herd of elk is going, because obviously they
Uh-huh.
have a very high vantage point. So, they would
Yeah.
bring the wolves to the elk, and then the wolves would take them down and they get all the leftovers. So, it was like a very perfect relationship for them.
Hmm.
So, our ravens, I guess, like, they're very good at like wanting to bring presents because they feel like you've given them something, they need to give something back. So they were taking these range balls. We finally caught one on the camera, bringing it in and dropping it near the carcass to say, like, thank you for letting us pick off the rest of it.
There's animals. There's sometimes that I just am amazed. I talked to someone recently on the show who was talking about a group of beluga whales in Canada that adopted a narwhal that they found by themselves. And sometimes these animal relationships, they're bizarre and unexpected, but they just go to show just like how just incredibly intelligent and also wonderful wildlife is. Like it's really like those little things that are bizarre but magical. Like
Yes.
that's yeah, that is fantastic.
I could watch these nature series all day long. I mean, the filming
Hmm.
these days is insane. I don't even
Yeah.
understand how they got that close to these things.
Yeah, it's madness. It's madness. And I guess I, I've like I've completely lost track of time while we're talking because I think we're just having like I'm just intrigued by everything you're saying, and I'm like I don't think I've asked any of the questions I meant to ask, but I don't care because I think that's been so interesting. But I guess like we're getting to the point now where I think I should ask about what's next. Like, what would you like to see within the next few years or longer term? Like, what is next for the Wolf Conservation Center or your work, or like what would you like to see be the next big things in wolf conservation?
Okay, so just our Wolf Center, we are trying to raise $20 million to build a new education center and make it
Hmm.
easier for kids to come visit us. So right now we're up this very steep dirt road, which is in very
Hmm.
bad condition. So the buses have to park on a highway below, and the kids all have to
Hmm.
walk up. So we're not great, like for those that are handicapped, it's really hard to get anybody up
Hmm.
there. So I really want to change all that. We want to have our tents turn into glam pack camping pods so that we can
Mhm.
do it 12 months of the year and not just when the weather is good for a few months. We want to extend our education programs much deeper, have a much more integrated camp. So we have like big plans. We're like half the way there. So we have a
Mhm.
lot more to do. So that's my like short-term goal in our little education center. And then next, really building out more information platforms to other areas so that we're working, just starting to work with colleges around building courses out about this. I
Mhm.
know when I went to school, I wanted to be an environmental consultant, which I did become, but there was no courses at any college that I could
Mhm.
find um, in the 80s. And that's changed a great deal. So helping some of those professors come up with their curriculum, because we have a lot of knowledge there. So,
Mhm.
yeah, really just spreading the word in any way we possibly can. It
Mhm.
does help to have so many followers because we can, do fun stuff and fun videos and then put in factual information.
Mhm.
Yes, we
Mhm.
hope we're creating this universe of people that can be speaking on behalf of wolves and not just us personally.
Mhm. Mhm. And that actually leads really nicely into I at the end of every episode I always ask the same kind of couple questions because I like to hear different perspectives on the same kind of question and the different things that I ask. And I guess if there are people out there who are part of that community or potential new members of that community, like I really want to I always ask like what can people do to get more involved in conservation or more connected to nature, and what would you say to those people who are maybe been intrigued by our conversation and are now like want to do something more?
So our website is nywolf.org, and we
Hmm.
have lots of information, advocacy work,
Yeah.
more wolf facts, all of our webcams, which are really fun and are very addicting, I warn you. Um, and if you want to reach out to me, I'm at
Hmm.
marthahunthandler.com. My novel is Winter of the Wolf.
Yes.
Um, I think it's a really good read. My other
Hmm.
favorite topic is death because I feel like we don't talk about it enough.
Hmm.
So my book is a lot about a young boy dying and what the family does to try to recover.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think that's my two sources for you.
Yeah, that's I because I read the description of the book in preparation for this, and it seems really like I'm now like I'm part of I've just started a reading group with one of my friends at university, and I was looking at it and I was going, it's
Hmm.
not exactly on the theme. But I think I want to talk about this with people, so I might force everyone to read it. Be
Thank
like,
you.
this is now I'm in the position of power to go, oh well I'm involved in organizing this, so I've picked this book even though it's not quite right for the theme of the group. We're going to do it, like I think that's going to be the plan.
I love that.
Because and it always gives me, it's always nice to have an excuse to kind of sit down and read a good book. No, that's fantastic, and I think yes, that's brilliant.
It's been optioned now by a director and then a movie studio, and
Oh.
now there's another director interested. So I hope that one day it makes it to the big screen. That's my
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
ultimate dream.
Yeah, especially because like I love things that come from books normally. Like I love the Hunger Games because that's just a new. I love all the other things that are based on novels, whatever. But if there was one that was like also not just a great story, but had a nice conservation-y, fall in love with wolves kind of message behind it as well, I think that's the key, is that getting into media, wolves getting into media in a positive way would be so powerful rather than just seeing them as they are often portrayed, as we've talked about throughout, as these kind of like, oh, well, they're always the scary thing. Well, if they're more, they could be so much more than that. And I think that would be so powerful. Hmm.
It's that's probably been one of the most rewarding things is going to all these book groups to talk to them
Yeah.
because yeah, to talk to real people that have actually read the book and have opinions and want to talk to it because so it
Hmm.
was kind of fun to do that and I interweave a lot of wolf facts in there. So I just try to kind of like my husband always says to people, if you want to know who she is, read her novel because she's got that's her, all her, all sides of her made it into that novel.
Yep, yep. That's perfect. I think that's, yeah. I think that's brilliant, and I think that's what a good book should, and a good piece of art in general, whether it be a painting or a song or a book or whatever it is, should tell you not just about what it's about, but also tell you a little bit about the person who created it. And I think that's, yeah.
Do you have a
That's
famous Scottish writer that I should know about?
oh, there's two. Oh, I'm trying to think of a good one that's not like a classic kind of. Well, I think the next, and this is not conservation related really, but I have just been intrigued by. I was reading a book recently that referenced this, and it's someone doing a retelling of Greek myth, the story of Orpheus and Eurydice, but it's the twist is kind of, I mean, it's a very famous myth, but it's the twist at the end is it's more of a critical kind of feminist take on a story that really centers around a man who like ignores the person he loves. She ends up in hell, and then he goes back to try and rescue her. And then because he kind of feels sad, and then she ends up getting ruined in the like she gets messed up. And I think it's Carol Ann Duffy has
Okay.
just rewritten the story, and or not just rewritten, but has rewritten the story in kind of a. And so I that's my next Scottish read, I think. But yeah, I mean the deep like Scottish like the classic one is always like, oh well, Robert Burns is our poet, but like I feel like I have to do something more interesting than that. So that would be
Yeah.
my reference. But yes, no, I need to get onto more Scottish literature actually, because I think I don't know, doing a PhD just now, all of my life is spent reading scientific papers and things. And I, as much as I love them, they really turn you off reading after a while because you're like, I can't read more after spending all day reading. And I need to break that cycle and go, actually, no, this is read fun things again, and hopefully that'll be good. I just picked up, one of my friends recommended a book by a Catalan writer that's been translated into English, so I'm reading that and like trying to get more into try to read for joy rather than just
Yeah.
the sciencey stuff now. Um,
We
yes,
all need more joy.
yes, yes. Now the second of the questions that I ask everyone is, and this is going to be a hard one for you because I think it's always been the wolf for you. But if I had to ask you to pick another animal, what would be your favorite underappreciated species? We've talked about the wolf a lot, but if there was something else that you'd say, people go and have a look at this, is there something else that kind of captures your imagination as well? Plant, animal, whatever you think.
I'm kind of captivated by everything, but I recently read a book about snails.
Okay.
It was so fabulous. They
Mm-hmm.
can make all these different slimes depending on if they're trying to get traction to
Uh
move
huh.
faster, if they have something that's after them and they need it to
Mm-hmm.
smell and get the thing away from them, if they want to show that they're in love and want something to go on. It's the most fascinating read because it just makes you like, sometimes I can just sit out in our woods and be like, there's so much going on. Like I love
Mm-hmm.
that movie about the fungi. Um, there's all the things you can see, and there's all the things underground that you can't
Mm-hmm.
see. All this communication going on, and wow, I'm just like the littlest things to the biggest things. We got
Mm-hmm.
chickens during COVID, and they're very funny. Like, you can make up what they might be saying to each other, but it always
Mm-hmm.
seems like Chicken Run. They're all trying to plan their escape. I'm pretty sure.
No, that is, yeah. And I always love when people pick, because I think I ask that question a lot, and people always pick mammals, or a lot of the time pick mammals. And I love mammals. Wolves, we've just talked about mammals for a very long time. I love pangolins. Of course, I love elephants and giraffes and bison and deer and all these things. Love them all. But when people pick things that are not mammals and pick the weird slimy stuff or the things that I'm like, yes, that's the correct answer because they're yeah. Snails, I think they're one of those ones as well that you look at them, they're one of the things that you probably see not every day, but more regularly than most other animals, especially if you live in a city or somewhere that like there's less kind of larger wildlife. There's something you see so regularly and so easy to fall in love with if you just take the time to stop and look at them rather than just passing them by. So I think that's a brilliant answer.
Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant answer. Um, and the last question, of course, you've kind of mentioned the website and the social media already, but just to remind everyone, where can people go to learn more about your work?
Okay. The Wolf Conservation Center website is nywolf.org. I think that's the best place for you. We're full of information,
Mm-hmm.
and you can reach out to me anytime.
Yep.
I'm around. I'd love to answer questions.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, I'll pop links to all of the social media and websites and the book that and everything will be in the description. So, listeners, if you are intrigued by anything that we've talked about, you want to learn more, or buy the book or support in other ways, or yes, all of the resources that we've chatted about today will be linked right in the description of this episode. So they'll be there and you can just click right on them and go and have a look at everything. Because yeah, make it easy for you. It's all down there for you. And yes, the other thing that I should say while you're in the description, all of the social media for the podcast will be there as well. So we're at Pangolin Podcast on everything. Might as well subscribe while you're looking at all of that anyway. And you can subscribe to the podcast on wherever you're listening. Leave us a nice review. Do all those classic podcasty things. Thank you very much. And yes, I guess with that all of that said, that kind of brings us to the end of our time. So I just wanted to say, of course, a huge thank you to the listeners. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing, reviewing, clicking on all the links, doing all of that stuff. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But of course, the main thank you of the day has to go to you, Martha, for all of your time and insights. And the way you tell stories is just so captivating. I've had such a lovely time chatting to you. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Jack. It was really fun.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm always glad to hear that that people have had a nice time. So thank you so much. And yes, until next time, thank you everyone again for listening. And goodbye.
Bye bye.